I hope that you are looking forward to this class with a certain degree of anticipation. I know it's a required class, and so I have a certain degree of realism with regards to the amount of expectation that you might have for this class. But nevertheless, I do hope that you are looking forward to it. And I hope that it's a profitable class for you. I hope that it's not merely another assignment to be accomplished or something to be done. I'm hopeful for this class for you because you can understand. You can understand the Bible. Now, for many people, the Bible is viewed or considered to be a document or a book that is too big, and there are too many opinions. Everybody has their own thoughts about what exactly the Bible means. And it's true. Anytime you're dealing with a piece of literature that is of as great of importance as the Bible and that has such a broad impact, then you are going to have a variety of understandings about what exactly the Bible means and what it's trying to communicate, and a whole host of questions that flow out of it. It is a big book, and a book that has brought about a lot of discussion, a lot of differences of opinion. Nevertheless, in spite of that, the message of the Bible is really quite clear. In fact, of the Bible, we could say that the Bible is a big story. There's a point in that. It's a story that overarches other stories. It encompasses subplots and has other themes, has smaller themes contained within. Nevertheless, there is a big story about the Bible that we can understand. And I'm going to give you two things to give you a handholds, if you will, as far that what should help you to understand the Bible. The first thing that I'm going to give is a theological overview of the Old Testament. Now, that word may seem like a big deal, like theology. And the word theology is really a simple word. It's theos logos, or theos is the Greek word for God, and logos is the Greek word for study. And so it is the study or thinking about God, just as biology is the study or thinking of life, or psychology is the effort to study or to think about one's psyche and things of that nature. So you get the idea. And so if you can understand biology and if you can understand psychology, then you can understand theology. And what theology is, again, is just our thoughts about God. What does the Bible say? What does the Bible teach us about God? So this theological overview of the Bible, and this is not merely the Old Testament, but of the entire Bible, this theological overview is an overview that helps us understand the big story of the Bible. Where is the Bible going? Is there a point to this book that we call the Bible, or is it just a bunch of random books that are, have somehow found themselves together under this one book, and just that's all there is to it? No, but obviously I think that there is a point to the Bible. I think that the Bible is going somewhere, and that we need to understand that. So if we're going to understand that, there are four periods or four things that I want us to see as far as the direction that the Bible is going. The first thing is creation. Now, the Bible is very clear. If you read Genesis 1, it begins with this earth-shaking statement. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. It's hard to imagine that there could possibly be a more consequential statement than that which is found in Genesis 1:1. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. And if you read Genesis 1:1, as you work your way through that particular chapter in Genesis 2, you see that everything that God created was either good or it was very good. So he made the heavens, and it was good. And then it crowns off with God making all of creation, and God making man and all of creation. And about that, he says it was very good. So what does this establish for us? Well, God made it in the beginning. God created the heavens and the earth. God made it. It's his by being the owner, by being the creator. He is the owner of it. And everything that he made was good. He did it right. There was no flaw in what God made. He made everything that we see. And indeed, the Bible is very clear that he made them not by taking other elements that were already in existence and forming them together, but rather he created them, what is from the Latin word ex nihilo. And that word means out of nothing, or by the mere breath of God. God spoke and things came into being. God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And God said, and of all the various things that God creates, he creates them by the mere effort, or by the mere mechanisms of him speaking them into existence. So God created it. He made it out of nothing. It wasn't that he was bound by any prior existing elements or anything like that. He made it out of nothing. By his voice, and he made everything that we see, and finally he made them good. Everything was good. That is an important thing for us to understand, and should cause us to step back a little bit, to think about, wait a minute. I look around and I see a lot of good. There's a lot of good that exists in this world. People are still have children and babies, and that's good. People have work and jobs, and believe it or not, that's good too. It's good for us to have work and to be able to eat. It's as I'm recording this video, it's almost 5:00, and an hour and a half, I'll go home and eat something, and that's good. There are lots of good things that exist in this world. However, we must also acknowledge that there are lots of bad things that exist in this world. I'm recording this on the 18th of January, 2021, and just 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, there was what is called the invasion of the Capitol buildings, and a number of people died in that event. That's not good. Unfortunately, there are a number of people in the world that are addicted to drugs and to alcohol, and brings about a lot of ugliness and pain and hurt, and that's not good. And there's murders and abuses and thefts and diseases and all sorts of things that we see in this world that's not good. So how is it then that we get from this creation that God said about it that it was good, to the point now to where we look around us and we see evidences of good, and then also a lot of evidences of bad or disorder and destruction? Well, it's not found in creation, and so now we need to look forward to the second of the Old Testament, or of the biblical theological points, or the points that the Bible is teaching us, and that is the fall. Creation, and then the fall. Now, what are we talking about when we talk about the fall? Well, quite simply, we're talking about the fall of the human race, the fall from grace, the transference, the transition in human history, where we went from everything being good to the existence of evil and disorder in the creation. And the Bible is clear that disorder and evil was brought about by the rebellion of man. In Genesis chapter 2, God tells Adam that he may eat from any tree that is in the midst of the garden, but he shall not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for in the moment that he eats of it, he shall surely die. Well, in Genesis 3, the serpent enters into the story, and the serpent says to the woman, "Did God really say you cannot eat from any tree in the garden?" Now that's on one level, a simple statement, a simple question. Did he really say that? But on a deeper level and much more truthful to what is actually going on in the biblical literature, what the serpent did was introduced a doubt into the mind of the woman. Did God really place a prohibition on you? Was there really something that he said you could not do? And the serpent then offered an alternative interpretation. He said, "For God knows that the moment that you eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that you will be like him, knowing good from evil." And the Bible tells us that the woman looked at the fruit. It seemed good for food, and she ate of it, and she gave some to her husband. Again, consider the level of sedition that is taking place in this act. For here you see the woman, and ultimately the woman and the man. They're both equally guilty, perhaps the man to a greater degree of guilt in this story. But there is a guilt on their part, because what they're doing is they're thinking for themselves. Now, you might say to yourself, now what's so bad about thinking for yourselves? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? Are we supposed to be spoon-fed everything that we know and just accept it on face value? No, not everything. We are wise to question a lot of things. There's a lot of falsity and things that should not be accepted on face value that are worthy of our evaluation. But from the biblical perspective, when a good and loving God says something about a tree or anything else for that matter, he has and possesses a level of knowledge and a level of consequence or accountability whereby he is in a far better position to evaluate the goodness or the badness of something than we are. And in those instances, we are better accepting God's word at face value. We are not meant to evaluate for ourselves whether or not we don't really have this choice now, but whether the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is good for food and desirable to make us wise, or whether any other thing that God prohibits is something that may actually, that we would come to the conclusion of in the end, that it may actually be good for us when God said it was bad. No, the Bible's clear. When God says something's bad, then it's bad. And Eve questioned that. She ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. She gave some to her husband to eat. And in the moment that they ate of it, what God said came true. They died. Now, they didn't fall over dead, as we might imagine, but rather death was introduced into creation, and there was a disordering of the entirety of creation. About the death, let's just go back and visit that for a minute. We actually weren't created to die. We were made to live. And anytime we consider and think about a death, when someone close to us dies, then we know deep inside that there's something wrong. There's a pain that exists there in their death, and we just know that. No one has to tell us that. They died, and then there was disorder introduced into creation. God approached Adam and Eve and said, Adam, where are you? And he said, we hid ourselves, for we were naked. They had been naked before, and there was no problem with it up until that point. They didn't see it as disordered. But now, because of sin, there was an introduction of a loss of innocence that led to Adam and Eve hiding themselves from God. And therefore, it became appropriate to cover ourselves. That's why we wear clothes and why we should wear clothes, because there was a disordering in the innocence that would have previously been there. Man hid himself from God. Up until that point, he walked in fellowship with God. He loved God. They existed together, but now man is hiding from God. So we see a break in the relationship between God and man. But then also we see in the break in the relationship between man and woman. When man said we hid ourselves, God asked the man asked Adam the question, have you eaten of the tree of which I commanded you shall not eat? And Adam's answer is an interesting answer. On one level, it blames God. He says, the woman that you gave me the fruit. I can't remember the exact quote, but he blames God. He says, the woman that you gave me, have I eaten of the fruit? Well, sure I have, but you gave me the woman. It's the woman's fault. No, actually, it's your fault, God. If you wouldn't have given me that woman, then I wouldn't have eaten of that. Now, this is a stark contrast between what we see here and earlier. Now earlier in the book of Genesis, in chapter 2, Adam is alone, and God seeks to make a helper that is fit for him. And God parades before him all the animals of creation, and he gives them their names. But then after giving every one of the animals of creation their names, that we're given this sad commentary. It's really the only thing that's not right in the garden, and God's is going to right it. But it's a kind of this beauty of God parading all the animals. Adam named them, and it says, but there was not a helper that was fit for him in all the garden. And so God caused a deep sleep to come upon Adam, and God took one of the rib from man. We're not short of ribs, but we just take it as God took from men, from a rib from man, and he made the woman. And when man woke up from his sleep, he said, alas, this is bone of my bone and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called woman, for she was taken out of man. Now, if you want to give a summary of that entire statement, it would be, wow. Adam is there. He's had all the animals paraded before him throughout the garden. And then all of a sudden, God causes a deep sleep. He takes one of a rib from Adam, and he creates a woman that is like him. And he says, she's like me, and I'm going to call her woman. And he is blown away by this woman that God has given him. Well, that was Genesis 2. But remember, we're talking about Genesis 3 now. And what's the condition here in Genesis 3? Well, the condition in Genesis 3 is the fall. And Adam has just blamed God for giving him the woman. Now, on another level, can you imagine how Eve must have felt in this instance? I'm sure she loved when Adam said, that woman that you gave me, gave me the fruit to eat. I'm sure she loved that. That would be a recipe for disaster in any relationship. What happened? She did it. It's her fault. I'm sure they had discussions about that later. But not only does it reveal that there's a break in the relationship between God and man, but also it reveals that there's a relationship between a break in the relationship between man and man, or in this case, between man and woman. There's a fall, there's a disordering in human relationships. And then also there's a disordering or a fall in the relationships between man and the creation. We see that Adam will farm, but he will battle against thorns and thistles in order to bring forth fruit. There's a cursing of the serpent as a result of this. And so there's disorder or there's conflict brought into the human system, conflict on the level of between God and man, conflict on the level and between God and woman and man, between man and woman, or man and man, a man-man relationship, and then a conflict between man and creation. 3 levels of conflict that are brought into the story because of this fall that we're talking about here. Creation, fall. In addition, and as I've already indicated, there was death brought into the system, brought into the world. So this is a serious situation, and that is how we got from creation, where everything was good, to the world in which we know now, where there is conflict and fights and diseases and viruses and tsunamis and hurricanes and earthquakes and the whole like. And in fact, I just got back from Louisiana, and I just cannot believe the level of destruction that is brought upon my hometown, where I lived, a place that for all the years of my life that I've known, and for the first time in my life, I look at it and it's different. The landscape is just different now. Why? Because of the fall, because of disaster being brought into the situation. I'm going to end this video here with creation and fall, and then we'll come back in a second video and pick up on the next 2, redemption and glory.